Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video I'm back on the MG and I'm going to swap the original style Lucas alternator out for a GM1 wire. So this is a pretty common conversion. When I bought this car, the alternator was bad. It had a bad regulator. They have internal regulators in them. So I put a new alternator on it. It was a new original equipment alternator. Probably came from Rock Auto. I do remember it was the upgraded higher output version, which is still just 39 amps. I got 6,000 miles out of that alternator. So they're known for not being reliable and also for not putting out a lot of current. So this is a pretty common conversion. Now, there's different versions of this swap. I think the Saturn alternators are popular, but I'm going with an old like 70s, late 70s through early 90s GM alternator. So let's dive in. So the Lucas alternator bolts to the front side of the ear on the water pump, but you can't do that with the Chevy alternator because it would push it way out front and the pulleys are not going to line up at all. But if you put it on the back side of the water pump ear, the pulley sits too far back, so we need it to sit right about there. So if you look at the ear on the Chevy alternator, you'll see how this is stamped in. The bottom of that opening lines up pretty much with this right here. And if we hold this in such a manner so that that is lined up with the back side, if this is lined up with the back side of the water pump here, the pulleys are just about lined up perfect. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut this whole section out. So we're going to cut, cut it right here, and we're just going to take that chunk out. And then if we need any more space, we can hit this with a flat disc grinder down in here and just grind it flat. So we need to make this cut that I was talking about earlier. We need to start by figuring out the depth of the cut. So you can do that simply by dropping something down in that opening and putting a mark on it. I don't know if you can see that or not. Yeah, you can see the magic marker mark. Then we can line this up with the edge. The marks on it. And also measure the first mark. That was just about a ½ inch. And we can put a series of marks along. It's actually not square at all. Okay. Tuck that rag up underneath the body of the alternator to keep it from rolling. I'm going to attempt to just cut this out with an angle grinder or a cutoff wheel. There's definitely better ways to do this. Pretty good chance that I messed this up. which means I'm out a $100 alternator. So hopefully it goes okay. I think actually I'm going to cut from the top first. Yeah, not overly in love with this. Oh, pelted in the face with shit. Yeah. That's cut all the way through on that side. And the problem is the body of the angle grinder is hitting the ear. I can't get all the way down. Oh, there we go. Let's see. So we now have modified Chevy alternator. Get in there with a flap disc maybe and clean that up a little bit. Get you in here and let you see I got is somewhat of an end result. Not the prettiest thing in the world, but I believe that's going to do what we need it to do. We won't know for sure until we go to fold it up and see how well the pulleys line up. I'm guessing I can take a little more off if I need to. And if I took too much off, I can always put a washer in there to shim it back out. The only thing I'm a little bit concerned with is that I didn't get a bunch of metal down in this thing and something shorts out and it doesn't work. So let's hope for the best on that. I didn't videotape it, but I did take a flap disc and smooth that out, grind it down a little bit more. Did that because I don't think I cut enough off, so I just used the flap disc to take it down a little further. So with the new alternator somewhat ready to go, we need to get this old one out. I'm going to do some wiring work and some bottom bracket work. I just want to see how close we are to that lining up, and we're still a good ways off, I feel like. Did read on the internet people put double pulleys on these to space them out a little more. May have to look up a double pulley for that, because I don't want to cut any more of that off. So the old alternator's out. It bolted here and here with two separate bolts, because the original alternator's got an ear on each side, the front and back of it, and then it's also got one on the bottom that bolts to a slotted bracket that goes on this stud right here. I took that bracket out. That original bracket is right there. I'm going to replace it with this bracket. This bracket was actually longer, so it was that whole piece, and that hole was not there. So I cut that because it was too long, drilled a hole, and I do have extra over here that I can cut off, but I don't want to take any more off of that than I have to until I get everything in place at least, and I know exactly what I have and that everything's going to line up. Basically, I just wanted to leave myself a little wiggle room on this bracket in case I need to add another hole further back, in case I didn't make this like from here on up long enough. So I have my alternator here. I have this stud. Let's see if I can get this stuff off of here. Okay, so I have this bolt here. This is a 5/16 18 by 6 inches long. 5 inches would be good enough, but again, I like to have a little extra space, so I'll wind up lopping that extra off of there once I get everything set in place. But this is going to slide all the way through, and then the alternator, remember I cut that piece out of the alternator, so you've still got a section, you know, about that thick on the Chevy alternator that's going to hang on here, and it's going to butt all the way up against here. The surface area that I cut is going to go up against the water pump here, the backside. Then I have a serrated lock nut that I'm going to wind up against that so that it's tight, and then I have two serrated nuts that's going to go on here so that this is nice and tight. And then you'll have the curved bracket down here, and that bottom ear on the alternator that bottom ear on the alternator is threaded, so that I believe that's I think it's a 3/8 by 16 or 3/8 by 18 bolt that I have that's going to thread into that. So once everything's set up, you'll be able to loosen this nut here, loosen the bolt down there. The alternator will pivot down, put the belt on, pull it up, tighten it down there, and then tighten that up for a little extra measure. You're good. The one thing I don't like about that is this. There's a lot of slop in that. So I can't use a bolt big enough to take up that slack, because this is the biggest bolt that's going to fit through the bracket on the engine and the ear on the water pump. I have no problem drilling a bigger hole through the bracket, but I'm really afraid of trying to open up the ear on the water pump because that's cast, and you know, if that breaks or whatever, then you're pretty well screwed. Then you got to replace the water pump. Also, this alternator is a lot heavier than the original Lucas. I'm sure I could get one comparable that's lighter, but this one is not light. So I really don't want to weaken that ear because that's, you know, that's your mounting point. So what I plan on doing is putting some heat shrink over that bolt. So once I get everything in place and I figure out how far up this needs to go, I'll put a piece of heat shrink over the threads where it goes through that hole. It's still going to have a fair amount of slop, so then I have the next size up heat shrink. I'm going to put another piece over the top of the first piece to thicken it up, and that'll take up most of the extra space in that hole. Right now I'm dead in the water waiting on the pulley because I need a double groove pulley. That way I can run the belt on the outside groove, which is going to space it out better and hopefully allow the pulleys to all line up without having to cut any more off of that. It's a new day. My pulley finally came in. It's right here. Double groove pulley. The alternator came with a single groove pulley, like so. Remove that. I'm going to put the double groove pulley on. Just realized there's a little issue with this. I'm not sure how I'm going to combat. I took the old one off. It wasn't recessed, so I was able to put my box end wrench on the nut. Use my Allen wrench to hold the shaft of the alternator. That's not going to work now. So I have an idea. I'll have to figure that out. I was thinking. Good chance that we get that tight enough, and then I'll be able to just grip this, snug that down. Could also use the impact. I mean, it's probably tight enough. All right, so yet again, it's a new day. I decided to put off finishing this last night so that I could order a few electrical connectors. So I just got a box of assorted crimp-on eyelets. This guy here, which is, I don't know if that's readable or not on camera, but it's an alternator wire boot. So this boot, it's just a Dorman boot, but the wire will slip through the backside of it, your positive wire, and the boot will go over the post. Protect your positive wire. And then I got this guy, which I got all this stuff off Amazon. I was not expecting this to be genuine Delco, but just a universal 2-wire connector for your other 2 wires. So I found some info on wiring on MGEXP. All you got to do is Google GM 1-wire conversion for MGB, and you'll find it relatively easy. I'll try to put a link to it in the description when I post this video. So on your wiring, you've got this large brown wire. That's your positive wire that goes down to your starter and ultimately back to your battery to charge your battery. You then have brown and yellow wire. I'm pretty sure, I didn't read this last night, but from reading other stuff about this, I'm pretty sure your brown and yellow wire goes to your ignition indicator lamp. So, for instance, if your alternator fails, like mine did, your ignition light on your dash will come on, and that is what is sending that signal to that light. And then you have a small brown wire. I don't remember what that goes to or what that feeds off the alternator, but you have those 3 wires. So we need to hook those up to the back of the Delco alternator. So obviously your large power wire goes on your post. And like I said, we'll use that alternator wire boot to protect that, to make sure it doesn't ground out to anything. Then you have right here terminal 1 and terminal 2. Okay. So those terminals are hidden under this rubber boot. So you can just pull this off. Well, really need to put more effort into using my tripod, but when I'm moving around. It's a little difficult. Okay, so the rubber boot just pulls off. And down here in this opening, you have these 2 spade terminals. So what I found on MGEXP is as follows. Small brown and yellow wire goes to the number 1 terminal. Small brown wire goes to the number 2 terminal, and large brown goes to the post. So again, we have 1 and 2. So that's going to be brown and yellow, small brown, large brown. So that's where this guy comes into play. So this plug will plug directly into here. Like so. And now we have a white and a red. The reason why I decided to hold off on wiring this up last night is primarily to order this, because it just makes it cleaner and it's going to be more protected than putting the individual terminals, original terminals, on the brown and yellow wire on the individual spades on the alternator, because they did wobble around a little bit and there was a chance that maybe they would move and touch each other. So rather than trying to tighten those up and melt some heat shrink around them and whatnot, I just decided to wait one more day and get the actual plug. So now we just need to adapt our brown and yellow and brown wire to this white and red wire. And again, looking at this, the white wire is now 1 and the red wire is 2. So it's going to be brown, yellow, equals white, brown, equals red. That way when I go to flip this upside down and do different things and then I can't remember, I have it jotted down. Please, before you do anything with these wires, actually before you even remove the old alternator, please remember to disconnect your battery, which is also kind of a pain because your battery, of course, is behind your passenger seat inside the car. And I did forget to disconnect my battery until after I had the alternator removed. So you definitely want to make sure you do that. Otherwise, this wire right here, your main power wire, is going to be hot, and you bump it to anything on the chassis of this car, you're going to get some sparks and maybe damage some stuff. Now I'm just cleaning some grease off of this, and I'll wind up getting these ends cut off and stripped. I'm going to go find some wire strippers. Well, I don't have to find them. I know where they're at. They're in the basement in my electrical box. So I have to go fetch some more tools. Hey, look at that. That came right off in my hand. I almost wonder if bad connections were causing a no charge situation, even though that's simply the indicator light. So that's not going to cause it not to charge. I don't think so. Something else worth mentioning. This Delco alternator I have, generic GM or Delco alternator, I think it puts out 110 amps. Pretty sure it's rated for 110 amps. That's all relative to amp draw on the system. So this large brown wire is not a large enough gauge to support that much amp draw, but amp output or amp like potential output on a rated device like a charger or in this case an alternator, that's potential. So amperage is your potential, voltage is like your push power to push the amperage. So yeah, this wire is not technically large enough to carry 110 amps of current, but this vehicle is never going to draw 110 amps. This system is not going to charge that or draw that rather. So while technically you would be better to run a new wire just so everything's matched, it's really a moot point. It's not necessary. I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to cut this end off. I'm going to crimp an eyelet on there that'll fit on the back of the post on the alternator. And then I'm going to cut and strip these ends. And at some point, I'm going to solder these to that red and white wire on that connector. But for now, for the purpose of getting the car running and for testing, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to... that's interesting. I don't necessarily think that should be open like that. Anyways, yeah, for the purpose of getting this going, I'm just going to wire nut these wires. I may not have a cable end big enough for this wire. So as much as I don't want to half-ass this, kind of don't have an option here. Other than not finishing this up again tonight or running out for parts again, which I could do. But I really just don't want to. And I choose not to. So, pretty sure that's a 10 gauge wire. I have 12 gauge connector. It just barely doesn't fit. And these are the why are you not showing up? These are the pre-shrink wrap jobbies. So we're gonna remove that shrink wrap, which is fine. It'll be fine. All right, I took the shrink wrap off, cut the seam that they had soldered shut, and that opens that hole up, takes a little tension off of it. Should allow us to put our wire that has no business going into that opening. Then we'll have to crimp it, which I'm sure it's not going to crimp very well since we cut it and destroyed it. Oh, before we do that, ooh, I would have been mad if I went through all that effort to make that work just to have to cut it back off. Need to put our boot on there. Since I've already stripped the wire, I just took some scissors and opened up the back side of that boot a little bit. You know these wires are going to want to fray when you force them through that opening. Okay. Okay. It's not going to go anywhere. I don't think. Watch it pull right off. No, that's good. And then the boot covers it. Yep. Solder would be great, but again, I don't think I'm getting into all that right now. Okay. All right. Remember what I said about I'm going to write down what color wire goes to what color wire because I'm going to do a bunch of other stuff and things are going to go on and then I'm not going to remember, right? So brown and yellow goes to white. So brown and yellow goes to white. A little bit of useless information for you. When wire nutting wires, you do not need to pre-twist the wire ends. Don't believe me? Look it up. But you just saw me not twist those, and you're seeing me pull on those. Hence, I am right. Does it matter if you twist them? Nah. Nah, you can twist them. It's fine. Or you can not twist them. And that is also fine. Interestingly enough, that red wire, the larger gauge wire, might be like accessory power, that brown wire. I can't remember what that brown wire is. It's going to bug me. I'm going to wind up looking it up. So I'm going to go one size up on my wire nut. Again, you really don't want to use wire nuts for this. But well, I'm fairly certain everything's going to work out. I don't know that for sure. I don't want to go to all the effort of soldering and all that. I have a really good soldering station. Well, by really good, I mean a nice soldering station that works really well, that comes from China and carries some name that I cannot pronounce. But it works good. I should be using it right now instead of being lazy. All right, so check it out. We got our end on here. We got our end on here. Then we got to actually mount the alternator, which means I got to remember what I was doing with that, where everything's at. So it needs to go through there. Don't know about this heat shrink thing. Actually, I never cut the right size. Bolt. Nut. The double heat shrink, so smaller heat shrink with larger heat shrink over the bolt. Sure. Sounds lovely. Glove's gotta go. Well, you're not gonna work, are you? Then we gotta get our temp gauge wire out of there. Maybe get that out too. And then here comes the not so fun part. Putting the alternator in place. And I went too far with the nut. Okay. Yeah, I really don't like this setup here. I'm gonna change this around at some point. Don't know when, but definitely. Don't see myself doing this like this permanently. Kind of think that heat shrink deal is not going to be good. I don't know. You, sir, might just have to get out of there. We'll do this. Let's focus on getting the alternator in there. Then maybe thinking. Yeah, that's not going to work. The thin tube shit probably will. Mm-hmm. Oh, messed up. I need to have another nut on the backside there. Damn it, damn it, damn it. And there they are. So, yep. So we got to reverse what we did a little bit. And I wish that I could like flip this up out the way like that. So this is going to make this even more of a pain in the ass because, well, yeah, fucking heat shrink bullshit. Had to do that, didn't I? Yeah, I really don't like this. I mean, I believe that this is going to work well, except it's just very hard to get it set up, and it's going to be a pain in the butt to service, like, in the event that you need to change it. Oh, I can't get that off of there now because of the heat shrink. Yeah, I really kind of screwed myself with that heat shrink. All was going well if I only would have just put the nut in place. Let's get the other glove out of the way. Meanwhile, inside the house, my cat is sitting at the door, begging through the door for me to come in and feed him. So at some point, that's going to have to happen. Oh no, on this stupid ass heat shrink. Come on now. I'll tell you what we're going to do. Bye-bye, heat shrink. We're going to cut you right off of there, and you're not going to be on there. So that's just not going to work. The heat shrink deal, not happening. Not even a little bit. Okay. Now we gotta get the other nut. It goes on backwards because that goes against the mount that's on the motor. Definitely wants me to drop it so that I can be annoyed. Some more. There we go. So that guy all the way through there. Okay, done. That then goes there. And check it out. This guy goes here. Need to cut the excess off of this 6-inch long bolt. You should buy a 5-inch bolt, not a 6-inch. 5-inch would definitely be good. Okay. This nut in here does not have to be real tight if you're copying what I do. It's more of a spacer than anything else, but I thought it might also help with holding things in place. Same with this guy. Okay. Then we gotta get that bottom bolt in. Tricky thing about putting this bottom bolt in is bolts here. It's got to go through the bracket, behind the bracket before it goes into the alternator. I need about 2 washers for space, just to space it a little bit. So that the pulley sits level and lines up. I might start this up and it might throw the belt instantly. Or it might not. I don't know. Guess we'll see. And actually, we're going to see real soon because we're pretty much in there. Oh boy. That boy's tight. Huh. Oh, I see. Why are you... What are you hitting? I'm not exactly sure what that's sitting on, but... No, the housing is hitting. Something's hitting something. Alternator's hitting the bracket. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. I don't even know, really, what I can do with that. Ow! Alright, that's now on. Snug that. Snug that. Now what we need to do is try to somewhat remember with the original alternator that there wasn't a great place to pry.
I wonder if I just hate how that goes. If that was like, oh, there we go. That seems somewhat promising. You know. Okay. I mean, I can probably work with that. Let's do this. Good enough. Then we need to snug this guy. We can snug that. Yep. It's pretty good.
Should have put a washer
Under this bolt head here, but I didn't, and I'm not gonna go backwards. Let's see, that goes there. It's gonna go there, but before we do that, we're gonna put.
So now
we gotta figure out the plug, and hopefully we can get to that. So that's down there on the motor side. So let's take this shit out. We're gonna try first and foremost plug the plug in. An oil filter might need to come out. Yeah, so it's gonna come down. Plug in. I probably should have plugged this in before I did everything. Again, that was a lot of work. I'm not gonna undo what I just did. I'd rather take the oil filter off if that's what I gotta do.
Alright, see, I was concerned about this. I hate the fact that the way this mounts.
Your electrical is like on the bottom of the alternator.
There. It's in there.
It is in there.
Cool.
Then this is gonna be balls of fun trying to get this stupid nut on here. My hand don't fit. You know it's not gonna want to start. Oh, I might have gotten it. I might have gotten kind of lucky. Yeah. Kind of wish I didn't put that boot on there now. Here's a pretty good question. Is there even remotely a chance that I can get a wrench or anything on that to tighten that? Probably not.
Kind of need a little ratchet.
Ooh, ratcheting wrench.
Good chance that's metric, but I'm going to hope it's not.
And that it's a 3/8 or 7/16. I'll vote for 7/16. I think it's working.
If you don't have ratcheting wrenches, go to Harbor Freight, buy the cheapest set of Pittsburgh ratcheting wrenches. Put these guys through hell. They hold up rather well. They get beat with hammers. Let me show you what else I do. Because they're Pittsburgh Harbor Freight, cheap tools. Can't get into a tight spot. It's cool. Just cut them. Then next time they got them on sale, get you another set. Hey, we gotta get our boot on there. Tell you what, this shit's all pretty tight, and there's a relatively decent chance that that boot never goes over that post because it's crammed up on the other side of the wires. Gonna hook our temperature gauge back up. Spark plug. Yeah, that looks good. I guess I need to hook my battery back up, see if I don't get sparks or fire right away. So I think I'm going to give it a key on, see what happens. And then if I don't have massive problems right away, I think I'm going to give her a few pumps and start it, put the meter on it, see if it charges. Let us see what happens. There she is. That belt is tracking true and straight. I don't see any flex or movement in that alternator. I got 14.35 volts charging. It's exactly out of high idle. I mean, I'm calling that a win. So even at 500 RPM, which is an extremely low idle for one of these cars, I'm getting a good consistent 14 volt at the battery. So we're all good. All right, I'm going to shut her down. All right, so that pretty much concludes this little project. Sorry for the haphazard, unplanned video. I kind of feel like that's my style. I didn't plan on doing this. I was perfectly cool with my little 43 amp Lucas alternator, but when it died with only 6,000 miles on it, and I know it's a kind of a known problem, and there's a solution for that problem, I opted to just on a whim tackle this little project and convert the car over to a GM one-wire alternator in lieu of dropping over $100 every 6,000 miles potentially on a Lucas alternator. So hopefully this lasts longer and hopefully it holds up well. Again, just to kind of recap it, I will put a complete parts list in my description, but I have a generic GM 10SI 100 amp alternator that came from Amazon. Pretty much everything came from Amazon. To make it line up, you got to cut a chunk off of the wide mounting ear that's not threaded. That gets hung on the back side of the water pump ear. There's a nut in there, primarily as a spacer, but it also holds everything nice and solid. Uh, Even with cutting that out, the pulley still sat too far back. So you can look at this now. Look at this back groove. You can see that it's off just by about, a groove width. So you can buy this alternator, or, a different brand, same thing though, with the double groove pulley. So I'll see if I can find one of those and I'll link that up along with the one that I used. But since I wasn't really thinking that I would need to do that, um, stupid me, I just didn't research this very well. I just kind of dove in and just did this. And, my process, the way this project went down, shows how little planning I had for this one. But, anyways, since I bought just a single groove pulley alternator, I then had to order that double groove pulley separate. Again, came from Amazon. Same exact belt that we were running before. Had to buy that long curved tension bracket. We had to cut a section of it off of the backside, drill a new mounting hole. Bolt runs through um, the slide section, a couple washers on the other side of the slide to space it out so that everything lines up evenly. And then this bottom ear here is threaded, so we just threaded it in. I should have put a washer on the front side here. If I replace the belt or I have this off or anything, I'm going to put a washer on it. That bolt that the alternator's hanging off of is a 5/16 18 by 6-inch long bolt. Please do not buy the 6-inch long bolt because you'll have all of that excess. I will cut that off at some point when I tidy this up. One day this engine's coming out completely. So worst case, everything goes back together a lot cleaner than it came out. But at some point I'll cut that excess off. But please just buy a 5-inch. So 5/16 18 by 5-inch long bolt. That bolt in the alternator is also 5/16 18. As far as wiring goes, we bought the Delco connector with the 2-wire pigtail, and we wire nutted those 2 wires to the brown and yellow, which is your ignition light on your dash to let you know your alternator is not working. And we also wired the other small brown wire. So small brown goes to red, indicator lamp goes to white, brown and yellow to white, small brown to red. Still don't know off the top of my head what that small brown wire is, but I think that's 12-volt accessory or something. And then the large brown wire goes to the post on the back of the alternator. I bought a boot, a generic Dorman alternator wire boot. All that stuff came from Amazon as well. And then we just put everything together with a few choice curse words, started it up, and it instantly works. So success on this project, just a little messy. I scratched the paint down here a little bit. My car's a driver. It's beat up. It's all right. Again, one of these days, she'll get stripped down and painted. That's the goal anyways. Maybe we'll get there. What else? This bracket, you know, I had it to do over again. I didn't want to shortchange myself on space, but I would have cut this bracket off way down here so that I didn't have all this excess sticking up. So probably will remodify some of this stuff. It's very hard, and again, like with the alternator, the Lucas alternator, the original style alternator, I had the same issue where it's hard to find a good place to pry on the alternator to get some tension on the belt. So if you have a small wrecker bar or pry bar that's got like an L shape or a 90 degree, put your small your L-shaped head down right here under your alternator and onto the side of your inner fender or frame rail, I guess it would be, and then just pry back. And that'll easily give you enough tension. I have plenty of tension, maybe even a little bit too much, but it should be good. So yeah, that concludes this one. Hopefully this helps somebody out. I appreciate you watching and hanging in there with me. And until next time, if it helped you out, please hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you.